There we go. Okay. And so let's show your work. Let's show what you all are doing. So Deborah, this is yours.
Okay. So this was actually the second one I did. I skipped around in the homework. And I had trouble finding a texture that I liked for it. I ended up using a canvas one, but I tried like 5 or 6 different ones and I just couldn't find one that I liked. Maybe I finally came to the conclusion that maybe it was a poor choice of photos. So
yeah, but it looks good.
I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. The texture is very subtle.
It is.
So
it
I
is.
like the drop of water.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the drop of water is good.
I spent quite a bit of time waiting my turn to have a turn at him.
Others wanted, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. No, I like the gray texture. I think it's really pretty.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that one, I think I may have gotten ahead of myself. But that's my grandparents on their wedding day.
Wow.
And the note that I used for the texture is a note that my grandfather wrote in my grandmother's little memory book before they got married. And if you read it, it's typical him. If you knew him, he ends by saying something about, well, I don't have anything else to say. And that was typical. So very short, but you know, I have her memory book. And so I just used my cell phone to take a quick photo, but the page that it's on has got kind of an odd color. And so I think when we get into either today's lesson or next week's, I can't remember, you may be able to help me adjust some of that and take away some of that odd color.
Yeah, and pull it back out.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks really good. It's really pretty. What year was this?
1935.
Wow. Okay. I was trying to read it on the license plate, but I couldn't quite get it.
Yeah, you can't, if you have the original photo, you can't see it. It was 1935. And they were married for just short of 62 years before he died.
Very good. And this is where I think some of these you know, some of these handwritten documents that we have can really add something to a really well done photograph. So that's beautiful. I like it.
Thank you.
Like it.
That one is from the same garden as the inchworm. That was actually on Jamie's workshop back in April. And so I was still having trouble finding a texture I thought was a good fit. I tried 2 or 3 and ended up with just one brush stroke one. And I used the channel mixer plus 5% to add some vibrance. And I did the iris blur on the tulip, the head of the tulip.
Okay, very good. Very good. It's really pretty.
Very pretty.
Thank you.
Very pretty. Yeah. Yeah. And the texture itself doesn't have much color to it, does it?
No, it doesn't. The texture itself pretty much was very similar to the background color in the upper half of the photo.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Yeah. That one looks good.
Thank you.
Okay. Dawn's is yours?
Yeah, it is. So I really mostly just was following what you did just so I could get the technique down. And since I was up in Denver most of the week, the entire week, I didn't really have access to my own photos. So, but anyway, this was mine.
Yeah, you did a good job.
The manual method and
Good. So it makes sense now. Yeah.
But I confess the rest of them that I did the auto method.
That's okay. That's okay.
And really for me, I'm just trying to get a hang of doing it and a feel for it, because this is so new to me that I don't really have a creative sense yet about it.
Yeah.
This was one of the first rendition of this that I did. This was the auto method. I can't remember what I used for the 2 backgrounds. I
Mhm.
think I had 2 extra layers. I can't remember, but I wrote them down someplace.
That's okay.
And so this was the first one I did. I actually see it, it was kind of hard for me to do this particular photo because if you go back to the last one, I liked your original colors a lot.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So, it's that what I'm saying about that concept that I haven't got a creative sense about it yet. I haven't
Yeah.
pushed the envelope on it yet.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, I pushed the envelope a little bit further.
Okay. Yep.
Um,
Yeah,
so
you got creative on this one.
it was just kind of, yeah. And I think I used the iris on that, the iris blur and the channel mixer. Oh, well, I don't know if I used the channel mixer on this one, but the iris blur. So yes, this was trying to do a little bit more, step out of the box. And then the next one, I went even further.
You
And
got
I
way out of the box on this one. Yeah.
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 So, and kept thinking about what you were saying when you were teaching the class about a foggy scene.
Uh-huh.
And so again, going with what am I trying to create here?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very good. Very good. And remember too, that all those textures and photographs are still in the Dropbox. So,
Right.
if this week, if you need something, everything's still in the Dropbox. So I like what you did.
Yeah, this one was one of my boring photos. I took a boring photo to see what would happen with it. And I think I downloaded, I don't know if this is one of your textures or if I downloaded one or not. I know I downloaded a bunch to try to figure out, to start to think about it.
Uh-huh.
I didn't really think much about this, but then I was at my girlfriend's today showing her something in Wix and doing a demonstration to add an image. And I just happened to add this one and she goes, "Oh, I would love to have that as a wallpaper."
Very good. Very good. And this one, you will notice if you look real close, I can't really blow it up any, but we've got some areas where the wings aren't coming all the way through. And that's not too unusual. So when we start talking about adjustment layers tonight, that's one of those places where you can go put an adjustment layer and then go paint over that to make sure that those wings come all the way through.
Yeah, I was wondering about using a mask effect and then dropping them in on top of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So good. You're moving out of that box. Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
That's good. I like it. I think it's got great potential.
We'll see what we can do with it.
Yeah, very good. And Sandra, here's yours. What'd you do? Sandra, you got to unmute.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was sending you a message. I've got a real unstable connection, so I was going to move.
Okay.
But if you can hear me, I'll tell you about
We
this.
can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. So this is a statue in the old city cemetery in Galveston, and I went on French Kiss and got some of those textures. I had a bunch of textures that I already had, but I liked the writing, and I didn't have any of those, so I got that with the writing on it. So basically, and then I decided to do it tall rather than long.
It's very pretty. Looks good.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
And that's downtown, obviously. And then I used a bokeh. I used a couple of different textures. I forget which ones. That's the thing, is I need to write down what I use because I forget. But I did that was my channel mixer with the bokeh, one of the bokeh textures, and then I did the filter around the buildings there, and then I did one of the lights, even though it wasn't in focus. I did do that, that extra with the light to make it a little more starry there.
It's very good. Did you do this on one of the
Thank you.
one of my workshops?
No, but
No?
I took Ruby down there like
Okay.
last year,
Okay.
with this, where you go, where
Yeah.
I'd gone with you, and so same idea. Yeah. Same
Okay.
pictures,
Okay.
same idea, same place.
Good job. I like it. I think you did a real good job. What do y'all think?
I
Oh,
like it.
yes, I like it a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
like
you.
it a lot.
Mhm.
One of the things, well, we're not talking about, one of the things I figured out I did, or I was probably doing wrong, because I've watched the video again ad nauseum, but I was going into each of the textures and picking the mode for it. But really, what it looked like really when you just do the mode for the whole thing, right? Versus each texture having like one being overlay, one being soft light.
You can change the blending mode on every single one of the layers.
Okay,
Mhm.
which is what I did. And then later I'm like, well, maybe I didn't need to do it that way.
Yeah.
But that's what happened with this. So
Yeah.
some were overlaid, some
Mhm.
were not.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, that you can do your blend mode on every single layer can be different if you want it to.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good job.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's
Ooh.
nice.
This one was my first one that I forget which one. I think the manual, Kathy, just like when you taught us to use manual first on our cameras.
Uh-huh.
So it's harder now for me to use aperture. I tend to go back to manual a lot. And so I found it easier to do the manual on this than I did. I had much harder time with the auto. But I
Okay.
did this one, I think, both ways. And so I don't remember how this one turned out, which way this was. I don't know. But I did it, I used a bunch of different ways, different things. And this is the one I ended up liking with a little bit of the turquoise in there.
Mhm.
It's a dragonfly
Yeah.
in my backyard.
It's nice because the blue dasher, the little turquoise here matches with the texture. So we're in color harmony, keeping the color harmony
Yeah.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And this particular texture had a little bit down at or kind of around the right edge, had some plants, real light plants, leaves, kinds of things in that texture.
Uh-huh.
So I think that texture ended up being an overlay there, but I thought it went with the dragonfly.
Yeah. Very good.
I have to say, I love it.
Thank you.
So the texture itself, Sandra, had these little leaves in the
Mhm.
bottom of it.
Mhm.
Oh, cool. Is it
Yeah,
one
one of
the,
them did.
Is it one of the French Kiss, or do you know whose it is?
No, you know where I got it was from, oh gosh, I'll think of his name. I'll have to tell you because I can't think off the top of my head. A photographer that does classes online. And so one of the little classes I took online with him, he gave us 3 textures, a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
So when
Good.
Deborah mentioned she had some, I was like, oh, I have some too. I just didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So that was one of his. But when I bought the French Kiss textures, I got 1,000,000.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. So anyway,
That's why I
those
said
were
put
awesome.
them in a folder because,
Yeah.
before you know it, you got these things all over the place. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
I
good.
did.
I think it has a very painterly look, and I like that.
It
Very-
does.
Painterly,
Mhm.
if that is such a thing.
Well, that's kind of where we're
I-
going. Yeah.
And that texture was I think it was a wood texture. That's wood with that leaves around it, and then other colors, the turquoise, and I think maybe a little bit of the gold with it too.
Very
But
good.
it's actually without those, it's was kind of a wood wall.
Yeah. This is a lady that
Mm.
I found in Santa Fe recently. I happened to be in Santa Fe for some surgery my brother was having, and it was Saturday, and I went walking in Old Town Santa Fe, and the Santa Fe Art League had a art exhibit going on. And I fell in love with this lady. And if you want to go check out, I've given you her name. If you want to go check out her website, if you look closely at this, you'll see that it's just textures. So, you know, she's taking a lot of these photographs herself and then overlaying them. So her moon is her own and her trees are her own. And then these wings that she does on this female form, these wings are off of museum specimens of birds. But she does a really, really nice job, very eccentric in some things, but at the same time, I think she does a really neat artistic job with textures. So sometimes it helps just to see what other people are doing with them. So I thought I would share that with you.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And you ought to see it in real life. It was a stop in your tracks. And you know me, Ed, I almost bought it. Almost an impulse buy, you know. So I still have her. I might still get it. Okay, so masks. Now today.
Did you get mine? Did you
What
get my
now?
pictures? Did you get my pictures?
No, I did not get your pictures. When
You
did you
didn't?
send them?
I put them on the Dropbox.
The Dropbox?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna go check real fast and see if they're there.
unless I put them in the wrong folder, but I thought I put them in the right one.
Maybe you put them in the wrong folder. I checked just a second ago.
Yeah, I put them in the Dropbox.
No,
Hmm.
I wonder if they're in the macro Dropbox.
Yeah, that's what I could have done wrong.
No,
Huh.
they're in there somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, we'll find them and then I'll show them next week. Okay.
All righty. Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. Sure. Okay, super. There we are. Okay, you all can all see my screen, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about masks and using masks. So these layer masks, and on your handout, I've given you layer masks, painting on a layer mask, adjustment layers, and fill layers today. So the layer mask, it is this little tool or this little icon right here at the bottom of the layer palette. So we've got our layer palette like this, and then down at the bottom, we've got this layer mask. And so it's that white with the dark circle in it. And a layer mask is flexible because nothing that you do with a layer mask is permanent. And it is also great for cutting through just a part of one layer, just removing something that you want or adding something. And you can limit to only one part of a layer. And your layer palette ends up looking like this right here with these two little white things next to it. And when you're using your layer mask, then this allows you to just, you know, cut through. Your layer mask begins when it's white, and white means that it's covering everything. So it's obscuring everything with that white. Then you can use your black paint on the layer mask. So you have to activate that layer mask. You use your black paint to hide anything that's underneath it. So you just want to cut through to that bottom layer. So your black paint on the mask hides the layer so that you can see underneath it. When you paint with black, you'll see the black area on your little layer mask icon, that little tiny white icon. You'll see a little black area on your little tiny icon. You'll see the photo below through the black paint. So you're cutting through to what the photo is below it, and that's what you're looking at with your black paint. if you use white paint, then you can erase what you just did. So if you use white paint, you can erase any errors you might have had. And so that makes your layer mask white again. So anything that you paint with black is going to cut through. And then if you want to undo, then you just repaint with white. White and black make gray. So if you only want to cut through a little bit, you can use gray. So it won't cut through all the way. It'll cut through just a little bit. And if you can handle this, you can paint on that white layer mask with solid black to cut all the way through, gray to paint partially through, cut partially through, or you can do a really light gray to only cut through a little bit, or really dark gray to cut through even more. So it doesn't have to be solid black. So I'll show you that in just a little bit. So there's times when you're going to want to, well, I don't want to go through that much. And you may not want to then change the whole layer, but yet you can just change it to different colors of gray and white, black, to cut through. So that gray partially hides. White erases, puts you back into white so it covers up. The black cuts all the way through, and then the gray cuts partially through. Make sense so far? Yeah? Till we see it in action, right? Okay.
I think I need some more wine.
Adjustment layers, on the other hand, so an adjustment layer, on the other hand, changes all the colors and tones underneath it. And an adjustment layer, this is really important, cuts through all layers. So a blending layer, so if we blend one photo into the other, a texture into the main photo, we only cut down one. A layer mask only cuts down one layer. An adjustment layer, on the other hand, cuts through everything. So an adjustment layer cuts through everything, and an adjustment layer allows us to change the color or the tone of the photograph. So moving the photograph to black and white, for instance. So your adjustment layers are different than your layer masks and different than just a basic old ordinary layer. So it applies to all the layers in the entire layer stack. You can add a layer mask to apply to only part of an image. You can use different gray tones to adjust the extent once again. And the more advanced, if you only wanted to cut through 3 or 4 of your layers, but not all of your layers, you could create groups. And we don't do a lot of this in this class, but you could create groups so that we could make one black and white, we could do one, but this would be if you were blurring and things like that. So those are adjustment layers. And then fill layers are where we can make a gradient. So fill layers are where we can put a solid color, we can put a pattern, or we can put a gradient. So fill layers allow us to add solid colors, patterns, or gradients to our photographs. So we have basic old ordinary layers. That's what we covered last week. But now we have layer masks, adjustment layers, and we have fill layers. So now we have 3 different types of layers. Got it?
Kind of.
Kind of?
We'll
Okay.
see. We'll see.
Okay. Okay. So let's go see how it works in real life. Let me get rid of that one. Close that out. There we go. Okay. And now we are going to share my screen, share my desktop. Okay, you all can all see my screen now, right? Okay, good, good. So we're going to go into our bridge, and remember, this is just the same as if you were in your Lightroom. And let's start with the first one. I'm going to go down here to this Maasai giraffe right here, and I'm just going to do this. I'm going to show you fill layer real fast. So I'm just going to do a real quick open in Photoshop. So it's going to bring up Photoshop for me. I'm going to move you all over just a little bit. There we go. And so now I have got this photograph that's kind of looks black and white. This is what it looked like. Blazing hot sun in a dusty Africa, and everything was black and white. And so it was just fabulous to photograph silhouettes because everything was black and white. So I'm going to go down here to the very bottom. See where I've got my layer over here on the right-hand side. I'm going to go down here to the very bottom, and right down here, I'm going to click. Whoops, that was a group. Sorry, my mistake. Delete group. There we go. So I'm going to click on this one right here, create a new adjustment layer. And when I click on that, I get lots of different places that I can change. And remember when we changed the color gradient? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So here I'm going to go simply to gradient right here. So that's, excuse me, we changed channel mixer. We use the same thing on channel mixer. Now, this is a gradient fill layer, and fill layer, you can fill them with solid colors, gradients, or patterns. And because I'm using black and white, and you all can see the black and white over here on the left-hand side as my foreground and my background colors. Do y'all see where those are? I might have to move you all out of the way. Okay. So I have, here's my colors right here where it says gradient. But if you come down and push this little arrow, there are lots of different gradients you can choose already preset for you. This is new. So in this one, it's just basic black and whites because over on the left-hand side, my foreground color is black and my background color is white. I'll show you those in a little bit. So that's why I've got the basic black and white. But if I go to the blues, then I've got all of these different colors of blue that I can use. And the same thing, if I go to purple, I've got all of these different colors of purple that I can use. So you've got a whole bunch of presets that are in here. So I'm going to go to this blue, and I'm going to come down here and choose this kind of pink with blue. And when I choose that pink with that blue, my gradient fills my picture up. And now I can decide whether I want this to be radial, meaning the pink's in the middle and the blue's on the edges, or do I like this to be an angle? Or would I like this to be a reflection? Or would I like this to be a diamond pattern? So I'm just going to choose my basic linear, starting there. And now I can decide how I want my pink. So do I want my pink on the top, or do I want my pink on the bottom? Or do I want my pink over to the side? So I'm going to take my pink like that. And then I'm going to tell it okay. And then when I go over to my layer mask, because remember, this is a fill layer, it covers up my whole photograph. I'm going to change my blending mode. So let's go to darken. That's what it looks like. Sort of looks like dawn, doesn't it? I'm going to go to multiply. Multiply doesn't change very much. Color burn doesn't do much for me. Linear doesn't do much for me. Linear is not too bad. Darken. lighten, doesn't do anything, screen doesn't do anything, blah, 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 blah. So this isn't what I'm going for with all these other ones. So I'm going to go back up here to multiply. And by using a simple gradient filter, I have now added a dawn sky to my silhouette of my giraffe. And then I can always go back into that and click it again, double click it. And now I can change the way that those colors line up based now on what it looks like now that I'm looking at the actual photograph. Or if I want to change it to radial, now I can do that. So I can change this now and just get a chance to see what it looks like. Angle's weird. Reflected's not bad. So you see how now we can go in and we can work on that artistic vision that Dawn, you were talking about. So it can get us close, but now we come in and we can actually start playing with it.
How does it know not to cover the black portion with that?
It knows not to do that by the multiply blending mode.
Oh, okay.
So notice that if I came down here to lighten, which is one that we were playing with a lot last week.
Yeah, now it covers it.
See, it covers everything. And if I do color dodge, now I can see the giraffe, but I can't see the background.
Right.
And before I couldn't see the giraffe. So each one of those blending modes does something different.
Gotcha.
But I like that multiply better for this situation. Neat, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's a fill layer. So we can save that so we can do that. So that's your fill layer. Good on that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So now we're going to go, I'm going to move you all over again. Okay, so now we're going to go into more complicated. So we're going to go into Eshwara right here. Wrong one, Eshwara right there. And now I need to go to French Kiss. French Kiss Keepsake, this one right here. And this is a layer or a texture that I made myself, and it is Christmas lights on a black velvet background. And now I'm going to go into Tools, Photoshop, load into Photoshop layers. I got to move you all over here for just a little bit and put you all back over here. There you go. Okay, so following your instructions, we are going to arrange the layers so that Eshwara is on the bottom. Then Keepsake is in the middle and Sparkly Lights are on the top. I'm going to turn off the eyeballs. And there's Eshwara. I'm going to make it just a little smaller for you all to see. Now, French Kiss, what do I have to do?
Size it.
Transform.
Yeah, good. We got to make sure it's selected, of course, and do an edit, pre-transform. And now we can take the side and pull it down. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to go to Sparkle. And what do I have to do to make them all the same size?
Transform.
Edit, pre-transform, exactly. Okay, and then pull it all the way down. So now all three of them are the same size. And now we're going to turn off the lights so that you can't see those anymore. And now I'm going to click on French Kiss right here to activate that layer. And I'm going to change the blend mode to screen, one of our traditional ones that we use when we're in textures. So I've changed it to screen. And now I'm going to change the opacity to 70 so that it's not so strong. Okay. This is one of those pictures, by the way, that's been sitting in my files for the longest time. I liked it. The morning of the men coming to work at the harbor in Eshwara, Morocco was magical. The shadows were huge, but I never really had anything to do with it. And then when I found textures, it was like, oh yeah, now I think I know what I'm going to do with that one and play with that one. Okay. So I've added this texture to it so far. And now I'm going to go down into the bottom right-hand corner and I'm going to click on the layer mask right there. And that gave me a layer mask right on that layer. And that's because I had that layer activated, and that gave me a layer mask on that layer. And it's now on the French kiss texture. Now I'm going to go over here to this tool palette. And if you ever lose your tool palette, it's under Windows up here at the top, and you just pull down your Windows and it's right down here under Tools. So if you ever lose your tool palette, that's where it is. Okay. So I'm coming over to the tool palette and I'm going to click on the foreground color right here. I'm going to click on the foreground color and I'm going to make it black. So I just click on the corner right there because that's the blackest black. And black, by the way, is 050505, but you'll never have to remember that. Okay. So that's that. And
Things
then
we'll never have to remember is what we'll remember.
exactly. You'll just remember 050505. That's what that color is. And then that means that my background color is the same color. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to go up here to white up on the very top. There you go. And white is FESCFC if I happen to be right up here in this corner, because I probably got a little bit of red in there. So now I've got white. So now I've got my foreground color is white and my background color, and my background color is white. So my foreground color is black, and my background color is white. Bottom of the tool palette, there we go. So we did all that. And then, by the way, right here, there's a teeny weeny white square overlapping a black square. And if you ever need to go to the default of black and white, then you just click on that and that takes you immediately to the default of black and white. And if your white is on the foreground and your black is in the background, click the little double-sided arrow and your white goes to the front and your black goes to the back. Okay. Or your black goes, they reverse. Okay. So just in case you ever need that, instead of what I just showed you how to change your colors, then just realize that Adobe's already got it there for you. And then they've got that little toggle for you to go through as well. Okay, so click on the brush tool, which is right up here. It's the brush. Click on the brush tool. And when you click on the brush tool, notice that I have new tools right across here up on the top. So when I click on the move tool, I've got different tools. When I click on the brush tool, I've now got different tools. So each one of these tools over here gives you new tools up here on the top as well. So we have a new toolbar up at the top. Go to the third icon from the left, and that's the size of the brush and the hardness of the brush. So we've got a brush that's about this size. You can see my circle on my picture right now. And then I've got a hardness on this brush of about 39, but I tell you on your handout, I want 40. So I'm just going to change it to 40 there. And now I can take my cursor and start moving it on my photograph. And since I'm using black paint on my white layer mask, what does the black paint do?
Cuts through.
Cuts through, exactly. So now I'm on number 7 on page 11 on your little recipe. And now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to start painting on the guys because I want to bring the guys out just a little bit.
So is the brush painting the size of your circle, or is it just what we see?
It's painting the size of the circle, but
It's really only showing up on the,
in the middle, right?
yeah.
And that's because it took me forever to figure it out. Very good question. That is because I have my fonts enlarged so that you all can see them better. And by doing that, it means that my brush is only in the middle.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
don't ask me why. It's just the way it is. You know?
okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you do this, your brush is going to be bigger. And I'm going to come down here and kind of do some fine tuning down into that shadow just a little bit. There you go. And in one spot, I ended up going a little bit over. You see right there
Mhm,
next to that guy.
mhm.
And so what color will
White.
white will erase? Exactly. So all I do is move my colors. And now I'm going to make my brush just a little bit smaller, and your brush is smaller with your bracket keys. So you can either go up here and change this slider, or you can use your bracket keys. So I'm going to use my bracket keys, and I made my brush just a little bit smaller. There we go. Okay. Now also, and I'm going to switch back over to black because now that I'm in here, I see that I've got a little bit of touch up that needs to be done right there. And I just didn't like that one. So I'm going to undo my brush tool. There we go. So I just undid my brush tool because I didn't like what that did. Notice up here on the very top, there's an opacity and there's a flow. So the opacity and the flow, if you know that you want to cut really, really deeply through your layer, then go ahead and make your opacity 100% and your flow 100%. I knew from doing this before that I was going to need to kind of smudge here and there. And so so I intentionally preset my opacity to about 56 and my flow to about 60. Otherwise, if I used 100 and 100 right up here on the top, then I would have cut all the way through.
Mhm.
And notice that over here on my adjustment layer, you notice how it's a shame it's so tiny, but you see how the little painting that I just did isn't solid black, that it's kind of grayish.
Mhm.
And that's because I didn't cut all the way through. If I was at 100%, I would cut all the way through. And it would be, yeah.
Why don't you want to cut all the way through?
I didn't want to cut all the way through because I've done this before. And if I cut all the way through, let me see if I can change it for you so that you can see. If I cut all the way through, then I'm still on black, then it's going to become very, very pronounced.
Oh, okay.
You see that?
Yeah.
So it's just that I've been through this already and know that if I have it at 100%, it's really pretty pronounced how much I'm going to cut through there. And then we could always go in and change it. But it doesn't change as well as if I didn't paint with such a hard brush the first go around.
So is this one of those things where the more often you go over it, the deeper it cuts?
That's the flow. Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay.
Right, right.
Okay.
So the flow, now I can sit there and just paint and paint and paint. It's going to take my computer a chance to catch up with it. But the flow is, it's the more that I rub on that, the darker it's going to become.
Ah.
Yeah, so that's the flow. So starting out a bit gentle as opposed to just cutting right through.
Okay.
See how much I can go backwards. There we go. Now I did it. By the way, in my Photoshop preferences, I have set it so that I can go backwards 20 times.
Oh.
Yeah, it's in my preferences. So I can undo 20 steps. It's just, one of those trivial things that I said some time ago. Okay, so I've cut through my guys. I'm seeing them just a little bit more. And on the brush tool, hardness of 40. And then I showed you on number 7, notice that the white brackets are still around that little mask. So that tells us that's what we're working on, is those little white brackets on the mask. And now going down to number 8, step 8 on the recipe, I'm going to turn on my twinkly lights. And you see that they're just completely covering everything up. Make sure that all 3 layers in this case have their eyeballs turned on. So all 3 layers have the eyeballs turned on. And then check to make sure all 3 layers have, and then I'm going to change for this top layer, the blending mode to screen. So at screen now, just my little twinkly lights are coming through.
Now, does the painting you did on that other layer, on the French kiss layer, just affect French kiss?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Just affects French
You
kiss.
haven't affected anything on the sparkly yet.
No. And it doesn't affect anything except the underneath layer because it's an adjustment layer, or it's a layer mask.
Okay.
Yeah. So I changed the blend mode to screen, and now I have these kind of like little sparkly things coming through there. And by the way, why it's doing that is because I did these Christmas lights on top of a black background. Anything that's black won't show through. Only stuff that's lighter will show through. And so those Christmas lights against that black background then end up only letting the Christmas lights come through and not the black background come through. So only the sparkling lights are coming through. And now I'm going to go back over here and make sure that I'm using my black brush. I'm going to make a bigger brush. There we go. So I'm going to make a bigger brush. And now I'm going to get rid of this big, huge light right here. And Deborah was talking about the fill, that the more I paint over that, the more it'll go away. But I really want it to go away. And so I'm just going to go ahead and completely go to 100%. And now that whole little Christmas light and my thumb holding the Christmas light have all gone away.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got something, I don't know what it is, but it was showing at the edge of the black background. I'm going to make it go away. I'm going to make some of the wires. You all probably can't see that, but there's some of the Christmas wires, Christmas light wires. And all I'm doing is kind of splotching them. It's like I'm spray painting them. And then here's another little bit of wire right in here, another little bit of wire right in here. So you can go in here and just kind of splotch this stuff away. And then I'm going to click on the sparkly layer. And I'm going to turn off the other 2 layers. And I'm going to click Filter, Blur, and go to Gaussian Blur. And this blurs my Christmas lights. And notice if I go all the way, I blurred them out completely. So don't go all the way, just because there's just because it'll go all the way, don't make it go all the way. And then I'm going to tell it okay. And I'm going to turn everybody back on. And I'm going to go ahead and just play with that blur just a little bit more. And my Gaussian blur. There you go. Because I can play with it now and actually see. So I can go all the way back to the way that it was. I think that's all the way back to the way that it was. Or I can go into here and then they would completely disappear at some point. So I'm just going to kind of leave them like that. Okay. So you see there's some cleanup I could do and there's some things I could do and some playing around I could do, but that gives you an idea of what you can do with one adjustment layer. And then also what happens if you photograph something like lights against a solid black background. And then all we would do to save this when we were ready would do layer, flatten, and save it. Good?
Very good. Very nice.
Okay. So next one. So on the next one, let's open the Fisherman.
I'm sorry, I have to go for about 5 minutes. I'll be back. but,
Okay, no problem at all.
yeah,
It's
'cause you're
recording.
Recording it, so that's good. I'll be
Yeah,
right
it's
back.
recording.
Okay.
So here is the Fisherman and French Kiss Color Wash, French Kiss. I got to make these bigger. French Kiss Color Wash, Classique Color Wash J. There you go, right there. I can make this smaller now. And then hearts. And these little hearts right here that I made. Let me click this so that I get all the way through. So I'm going to use the automated method. These the little hearts that I made. This is a piece of black construction paper taped to the front of the lens with a heart stamped out of it. So one heart,
Just one?
just one.
Okay.
And any light that it sees, it'll turn it into a heart. And the layer and the lens is blurred.
So it's multiple lights through one
Heart.
shaped hole.
Yes.
Okay.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine how it does that.
It's one of those, don't think about it.
Yeah, no, I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah. So, okay. So we are going to move the Fisherman to the bottom, and we are going to use the heart shapes next and the French Kiss next. So now when we turn off everybody else, how do we get the Fisherman the right size?
Transform.
Good. Edit pre-transform, pull it all the way down. There we go. And then go back to your move tool just to reset. And then the hearts are the right size. And then the texture is the wrong size. So we're going to go to, whoops. Notice that I didn't click on my layer. See?
Yeah.
So it's the Fisherman that has the red line around him, not the French Kiss. So you got to click on your layer and then do the edit pre-transform. So learn from my mistakes, watch my mistakes, okay? Because I still sometimes get ahead of myself. And then I'm sitting there going, why didn't this work? Okay, so turn the eye off the French Kiss. There you go. And with only the heart shapes and the Fisherman active, change the blend mode. And you notice that I don't have a blend mode. See right here where my cursor is? I don't have a blend mode, and that's because that layer that I have activated is turned off.
Mhm.
So I don't have any blend modes. So I've got to click on the heart shape. My blend modes come back. And now I can change my blend mode to overlay. There you go. And when I change my blend mode to overlay, now the little heart shapes are behind the Fisherman. Turn on the French Kiss layer, covers everything, make sure it's activated. And now change the blend mode, because remember the blend mode only goes down one. So when we change, that's what it looks like. In the darken, doesn't look good. That's what it looks like in the multiply. That's what it looks like in the color burn. That's what it looks like in linear burn. I can see the texture back there. I can also see the hearts, kind of like linear burn. That's what darken looks like. Lighten looks like that. Once again, lighten doesn't look very good at all. And then once, you know, coming all the way through, it's just up to you and your creative ideas, but I'm going to go to linear burn. So I'm going to click on linear burn. Okay. And now I'm going to make a new layer. So new layer is right here underneath in the bottom right-hand corner again. So I have my layer masks. I have my fill layers, adjustment layers. I have my groups, which we've just barely talked about, but we haven't done yet. And now I have a new layer. So I'm going to click on my new layer, and my new layer goes up at the top. So now I have a new layer up at the top, and it has brackets around it. And on that new layer, right there, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to choose my text tool on the left-hand side. So here's my text tool. And I'm going to take my text tool and I'm going to position it right here. And it gets that Latin, those Latin words that's holding your place. And I'm going to type in my words. So now I can double click the text layer. And when I double click the text layer, I've got all kinds of stuff going on up here again. Double click the text layer, and now I can change the font so that as I go through here, any font I choose is going to change. So it gives me a chance to see what kind of font I want to change. And I'm going to change it to that chalk duster. So by clicking on that text layer, I can just go through and out of the whole font, every single font that's here, I can go in here and I can choose the one that I want. So I'm going to choose that chalk duster. And I can also now, with that layer activated, use the move tool to move it around. And with that layer activated also, I can also, there we go, double click to activate it. Sorry, there we go. So now I can move it, correct? I can move it around. Yeah, I got to make sure. Yeah, there we go. So I can move it around. There we go. So now I can move it around. And remember talking about fill last time around? The fill layer? The fill determines how much of the inside of that chalk gets filled in. So I can make it solid or I can make it less filled in. There you go. So that's what your fill is doing right there. So that's when we use it on text. And then going back, I am going to click on the French kiss. And down in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to click on, remember that new fill layer, adjustment layer, and I'm going to choose color balance right here. And like that color channel that we used the other day, this is another way to change the color of just that layer. And by the way, notice that my layer is not activated anymore. My French kiss layer is not activated. My color balance layer is activated, and it's only affecting the picture underneath it. So this color balance layer is now affecting the French kiss texture.
But it
And
only
so-
affects the first one underneath it, not the second. Okay.
Correct. I'm only changing the color on that texture underneath it, on that layer underneath it.
Okay.
So I'm going to move the slider a bit more.
Now, I have a quick question, Kathy.
Yeah,
Back here before, is this an adjustment layer or is Is this an adjustment?
This
layer?
is, it's a color, it's right down here under your new layers, adjustment layers, and it's called, it's an adjustment layer. It's a new fill or adjustment layer, because that's what this is called, new fill or adjustment layer. And when I clicked on it, I clicked on color balance.
So I'm just going back to your handout and what you said earlier, that adjustment layers allows you to change colors or tones, and it cuts through all the layers.
Ah, that's true. So it does cut through all the layers. Yes. Yes. Keep me
Or
straight.
It's not just applying to that French
To the
kiss.
French kiss. It's going to go all the way down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Keep me straight, guys. So now I'm going to move my slider a little bit more toward the red to make this more orangey color, and the yellows to make this more of a golden color as opposed to that blue color that it was. And that's in the mid-tones. You can do the exact same thing in the shadows. So you can move it more red and more yellow. And you can do the exact same thing in the highlights. You can make it more reds or more yellows. So this is your color balance as opposed to those color channels we were using before. So what you think?
I'm glad you have it. I'm glad you have a detailed step by step.
It's necessary, isn't it?
Oh, heck, yes.
Yes. And then once you're finished with this, by the way, you just click the little X and it goes away. So, oops, I lost my Photoshop. Where's my Photoshop? There's my Photoshop. There we go. Yeah. So now you see just that detail that we went in there. Yeah. Good.
Good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Questions?
So that last layer that you added affects everything below it. If you wanted it to affect only the bottom two, you could move it so that there's something above it that you don't want to affect.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. You got it. You got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's stuff that we've got to think about. So at least now you have it on your handout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a recording.
And the recording. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So anybody need me to do anything over again? Or you want to see anything one more time?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I know that it's going to be more meaningful when I start toying with it.
Yeah, you've got some neat tools now. You've got some really neat tools. Okay, so in your homework assignment, I'm going to quit sharing my screen. There we go. So I can see you all big. There we go. Okay, so in your homework assignment, okay, you are going to create an image using one photo and two textures plus one layer mask. So one photo, two textures, just like you did last time. But now I want you to throw a layer mask in there. And those textures are still up on in the Dropbox if you need them. And then I want you to create an image using one photo and two textures plus one fill layer. So that fill layer is where I added those two different, that pink and that blue. So you can add one uniform color if you want to, or you can play around with it. So you're going to make a photo, you're going to make an image using one photo, two textures, and one fill layer. And then number 3, I would like you to create an image using your photo and two of your textures. So now I want you to go find some textures: bricks, gravel, wood, stucco, plaster. Go find some textures. Okay. So take a photo that might be used as sparkly lights. So see if you can find something like an indication of sparkly lights. And in that photograph, I would like you to have no purchased textures at all. So just textures you go find yourself, no purchased textures. And then Dawn's already done this, but I would like you to write a recipe like I've given you all for how you made one of those pictures.
I did.
Or did you write a recipe, or did you just told me how much of sliders you used?
I just basically did a spreadsheet to remember what I applied.
Okay, that's fine, because you labeled it recipe. So I thought you'd already done your recipe. Yeah. So I want you to write a recipe just like I've given you. And then what you're going to do is, this means that you have not only all my recipes that I've shared with you, but you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 of your fellow classmates' recipes as well.
Mm.
And so you need to make sure it's tried and true, run it several times, make sure you're not going to send your fellow classmates into a tailspin trying to figure out what your mistake was. So run it several times and make sure that it works. And then I'll share it with everybody else. Okay?
Kathy,
Yes.
Kathy, on the taking the photo that might be used as sparkly lights, is that the actual photo, or are we making like a texture like you did? Do you know what so you had a picture of sparkly lights on a black background. So that's what we're doing, is making that texture layer, or that layer with sparkly lights, versus
Yes.
that being the photo that we're using. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. You're making a layer.
Okay.
And
Okay,
you know,
okay.
if you think about it, if you can find some sparkly lights that are wrapped around a tree trunk, then that would give you some sparkly lights plus the texture of the tree trunk.
Does it count as 2 textures?
Well, that would be 2 textures in one, but you only get credit for the sparkly
Oh,
lights.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't count as 2. No. So, you know, just go see what you can find. If you have some slate tile, that would be a cool texture. Bricks would be a nice texture. Plaster, I've told you about that. Plaster on the ceiling of my house is texture. So anything that you might find that could be texture. Canvas would be texture. Those drapes behind you, Dawn, might end up being texture.
I was just looking at those.
You're looking at
I
that.
was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Can we
So
all
in
come
other
visit
words-
Dawn?
Yeah.
So in other words, we're making our own texture.
You're making your own textures. Exactly. So it's time to start making your own.
So it's not just no purchase textures, it's no free textures either, it's ours.
It's ours. It's your textures. Exactly. Ed's got cat fur, I can see. That's nice and handy there. Yeah. So, you know,
Yes.
if you have a dog with curly hair, that might be a texture.
Mm.
Sandra,
Yeah.
you got that dog with curly hair. If he'll ever sit still. It doesn't do that. No. So think about what you've got that could create textures. Okay. And then we'll try to find where Ed's pictures are from last time. If you don't want to risk, by the way, putting them in Dropbox, they're small enough, because when you resize them, they're small enough that you can attach them to an email. Feel free just to attach them to an email.
Okay, so
If
I'm trying
that's
to
easier.
drop them in Dropbox and it won't let me do it.
Okay. Okay.
Because I come over Dropbox and drop my folder. And then it goes to Never Never Land.
Ah,
Because last time I had to sign in, which I did. And,
Yeah.
And last time I just drug it over, it was like a no-brainer. And this time it's like not.
it won't do it. Okay. I need to also make sure that you've got permission on that folder. So I'll check to see if you've got permission on that one.
Oh, okay, because the other one was just drag it over there and there it was. And this one, I thought I did it, but somebody was coming over and I didn't double check, but it's not letting me drop it. I'll just send you the mail.
one second. I'm gonna go in there real fast, Ed, and just make sure that you are,
Oh, okay.
just to make sure I'm sharing it with you. Okay, that folder's been shared with you.
All right, let's see if I can drop it in then.
That could be what it is. But if you want to attach your photos just as an email, you are more than welcome to.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that because it's still not letting me do it. And I
Still
don't know
not
why.
letting, okay.
Last time it was like a no brainer. I just,
It just went
Yeah.
in. Okay.
yeah, I just
Yeah.
copied it and dropped
Yeah.
it in.
Dropbox does that. Crazy. Okay, any questions before I leave you all? No? Okay, have fun on your homework assignments. Email me if you've got any questions. I'll be around. And I will see you all next week, same time, same place. And I can't wait to see what you all come up with. Okay?
Thank you.
You are
Thank you,
welcome.
Kathy.
Okay.
Kat-
Yeah.
Kathy, on that problem I was having with my computer, I finally thought restart your computer,
Yeah.
and that did it. So
Oh,
I'm not
very good.
sure. Yeah. And I was panicking, like,